Well, not everyone here has been riveted to the television or their computer screen today, and I will confess that I have been toggling back and forth between the piece I was trying to edit and the testimony. But so that you know, today was the day in which, well, we actually have a lot of people here who are not even Americans. So to say that we are in the process in our country right now where we have a Supreme Court seat that is vacant. The president has made a nomination, and the Senate is the body that's charged with investigating and then approving or not approving that position to sit on the Supreme Court of the United States. It's a 9-seat court, and positions are awarded for life. So it's serious, you know, who sits on the court. Without going into great detail, and I'm really not qualified to give the details accurately probably, a candidate, Brett Kavanaugh, was nominated in July, I believe, and has been going through a vetting process. In the course of that, and was actually to be voted on this week. It was a little bit quick, some people thought not, different sides of this issue. But in the last few weeks, there has come forward a person who has made allegations that as a teenager, when they were in high school together, they were engaged in a party where she was sexually assaulted by this nominee. And out of her concern for the nation and wanting people to be aware that this was a part of the background of someone who's being nominated to sit on the highest court of the land, she wanted to bring that forward. So that's the short story. As you can imagine, there's been lots and lots and lots of rhetoric around what's her motivation, who was she, his denial, her moving forward, people wanting to represent her, and then subsequently in the last few days, more allegations have come forward from other women. So it's become quite a national thing. And today is a hearing where the Senate is hearing the case or the testimony of the woman, Blasey Ford, first name? Christine Blasey Ford. And then this afternoon, probably starting right now, they will listen to Judge Brett Kavanaugh. They will also be questioning him. So it's a televised live hearing. Before the hearing this morning, though, as I was reading last night, all the things that have come up, the thing that impressed me the most from the Dharma point of view is realizing how an afflicted state of mind can take over our mind like that. An afflicted state of mind of anger or of greed or of lust or of jealousy or of pride, I mean any of them, any of our cravings, anything takes over our mind in a moment. We all know that. We've had that experience of having our mind just completely consumed by anger, for example. And then we take action. And then that action leads to another action, another action, another action, and how the arising of an afflicted mind that completely consumes our consciousness and our awareness has the capacity to destroy a whole life, to destroy a whole family, to destroy a whole nation. So for me, the lesson in that point of view is recognizing that every single one of us has the same capacity of all the players in this hearing today. All of the Senate players, all of the accusers, all of the defenders, all of the supporters, every one of us is caught by the arisal of afflictions in our minds. And just reminding me of how devastating that enemy is, not anywhere outside of us, but inside ourselves. And so appreciating how the Buddha Dharma gives us the tools to begin to recognize this and to start to eliminate these, and how fortunate we are to have these teachings. And so to be watching this whole display and this hearing later today from the Dharma perspective has been very edifying, I think. I'll let you talk about the education part.
Okay, so she was giving the background, and then I'm supposed to talk about what happened in the hearing today. But I want to say first, I completely agree with your assessment. When you step back and you look at this whole thing, it's just this incredible samsaric event of people's minds, their ignorance, their anger, their the bias. Yeah, the bias, the inability to open one's mind to other viewpoints, the inability to have compassion for each other, comes very, very strong. And I watched most of it this morning. What really kept coming to me was the line in the Shantideva prayer that we chant to, in Star Spangled Compassion, and made people think of benefiting each other. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how important that line is, because, you look at the whole Senate hearing and what was going on, and how many people there were thinking of benefiting each other. To me personally, my personal reaction was Dr. Blasey. She had a motivation to benefit the country. It seemed that way to me. She's not getting anything positive out of this. The whole thing is horrific for her. And, and she's getting grilled about her own sexual assault. I read one article in the paper that some time ago, when your car is stolen, nobody says, and you saw the person who stole your car, nobody says, are you sure that was the person? Why did you buy such a beautiful car to start with? Didn't you think somebody might steal it? You don't get grilled when you report a stolen car. When you report sexual assault, you get grilled. And so this morning, it came up again and again that this is not a trial. Yeah, it's a confirmation hearing. It's a job interview for the judge to see if the judge is qualified or not. But the way it was, the whole feeling about it was that it was a prosecution. And no other witnesses were allowed to come. I was wondering what Kavanaugh was going to say, because Blasey was quite direct and honest. When she didn't know something, she said so. When she didn't understand something, she said so. And I just was able to catch a little bit of Kavanaugh before we came here. He came in swinging. He's furious, totally furious, and blaming it on the Democrats, that this was a last-minute ditch effort by the Democrats to stop his nomination. And he said, I had advocated for a nonpartisan review of everything, but it's the Democrats. And I mean, he was furious. And his whole energy was in very stark contrast to her energy and her voice. She was giving information. She didn't make any statement about whether he should be confirmed or not. She was just telling her story. And he was swinging. And at one point, he started to say, how he has always treated women well and respects women, and how during this last week, his 10-year-old daughter said we should pray for the woman. And he choked up when he said that, when he was thinking of his daughter. And he had to take a minute or so to regain afterwards so he could keep speaking. You know, he started to speak and lash out at the Democrats again, and then he had to stop and really, he was on the verge of tears. And you could see that how much this has been affecting him. Yeah. And many people have been talking not only about empathy, but himpathy, and how, empathy for the men who are accused of assault, And so it's interesting to see. I don't think he was faking that. I think it was honest. But it will be interesting to see how that plays into things. But I suspect the rest of his thing will be quite, really angry and forceful. So we'll have to, he was just making his initial statement, his opening statement, when the lunch bell rang. So we don't know the questions and answers, but that's what's happening so far. Yeah, but it's, what I think saddens me the most is how political this has become, and how, Dr. Blasey was making her statement, and she's just giving information, and you could see the senators, both Republicans and Democrats, how they were playing their little game beforehand, in the questioning of, the Republicans blaming the Democrats, and the Democrats, saying the Democrats, did this at the last minute, and the Democrats blaming the Republicans for not having an FBI hearing, which would be very helpful to have more information, and how that jockeying of politics was in the background of this woman talking about, the most horrific thing that happened in her life. So it was this very strange kind of juxtaposition of what's happening in the country and how people are relating to it. And then to have him come in like, was something. So we'll see how the rest of the afternoon will play out. But yeah.
Was she asked why she waited?
She was asked that. And actually the Democrats, the question was, did she say why she waited so long, for it to come out? And actually the Democrats asked her that. And it came out. It was very interesting because she was following his journey up through the courts, and she knew she had information if he made the short list of candidates. But of course, she didn't want to jump in if he wasn't in on the short list, because it would make her whole life topsy-turvy, which it did. So after he was on the short list, then she wanted to say something, and she didn't know how to do it or who to contact. So she asked her friends, who she goes to the beach with, about what to do. And some of them said, get a lawyer. Some of them said, talk to your representative. Some of them said, tell the Washington Post or the New York Times. So people gave her various ideas. And she didn't see the need for a lawyer. And actually, I always wondered, too, why do you need a lawyer in these kinds of things? But I'm beginning to kind of understand now a little bit, because a lawyer is a protection against all this negative talk that you get. But that's when she called her representative's office. She made an anonymous tip to the Washington Post. Neither of those responded immediately. Yeah. But then finally her representative's office responded, and, she spoke to them, and then they were forwarding the letter to Dianne Feinstein, who was the senator from California, which is the state she lives in. So that's quite a natural process. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I only heard a few minutes of it, but I did tune in at the point where there were men speaking. The camera weren't on them, but they were thanking her for doing her civic duty. And the way they spoke, they represented how we want men to be in our society.
Yes.
I found that very touching.
Yeah, those were men, mostly the Democratic men, I think that spoke and questioned her this morning. And it was very nice to hear them acknowledge the import of what she had to say, and to acknowledge that regardless of whether he is confirmed or not, this is going to affect the culture in the country. Of course, he said the same thing when in his opening statement, but he said, "I'm afraid for the country." Yeah, because of the political thing. That was how he thought it would influence. But many of the men who spoke were really saying that it's a big moment for really making the statement that rape, sexual assault, sexual harassment does not go, and it cannot go, and that people must be aware of it and not blame the victim, and men especially must be more aware of their actions. Yeah. Another subtext in this whole thing, besides the politics and the sexual assault thing, for me, another subtext is, and we were talking about this morning, is privilege. And what happens, it also indicates class, because he is the only child of a wealthy family who had a fantastic education, did all the right things in the public eye, and felt this entitlement that, as somebody from his background and his class with well-connected parents and a good education, he come, a Yale law student, and they already have 3 Yale alumni on the court, that he was entitled to this kind of position, or that all his other faults he's entitled to have them overlooked. Yeah. So that, to me, also was playing out in the background of this feeling of privilege that quite wealthy, powerful people have in this country. Because I keep thinking that if this were some, minority kid from a poor community, or even a white kid from a poor community, this would have gone to court, and the kid would have been tried as an adult, and given a sentence 15, 20 years, lock him up, throw the key away, and nothing would be said. Yeah, that's if the victim had come forward. Right. But they say that 2/3 of all victims of sexual assault do not come forward. And you can understand why they don't when you look at what's going on now. And who would want to be in the middle of that?
I saw a very poignant, I guess it was, how sometimes on the news things they do tweets. So I think it was a tweet. Someone was on an airplane tweeting, 2C, crying, 16G, in tears, 37B, crying. I mean, just noting that everyone on the plane is watching this, and the place that it hits in every woman, whether you've actually experienced full-on sexual assault or not. To watch someone as sincere as Dr. Christine Blasey Ford was, and strong in her statement, talking about not only the most terrible thing that ever happened to her, but the most private, the most intimate, the most shameful thing that has happened to so many watched by the world. And her willingness to testify in that straightforward, this is not a person, as one of the commentators said, this is clearly not a person with any political agenda whatsoever. Yeah. There's not a political bone in her body, one of those commentators said. Out of a wish to benefit others, not even to destroy him. No. There's no vengeance in this act. It's astonishing, actually. I can't imagine the impact. And still, there's still affliction on every side. Ugh. Samsara at its most extraordinary, dramatic, operatic.
So this whole thing every being think to benefit each other. We can't control the world, but we can deal with our own mind, and this is what we have to practice, and it starts here with our mind thinking to benefit people and not have hatred and vengeance, but to speak the truth.